Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Stewing. Making a 90-minute film is way easier any day than telling a story in 30 seconds. One person who has mastered this storytelling art in 30 seconds is Rob Middleton. If you ever meet Rob in person, it will be a meeting you will remember for the rest of your life. Hearing Rob talk is like talking to a live television. So far, his voice is heard by millions across the globe in TV commercials, promos, radio jingles, and even in films. Rob is also known as the god of TV promos. He started making promos when promos were unheard of. His craft is unmatched and he has a fan following for his work, which can overshadow a rock star. In my previous life as a broadcast promo producer and creative director, Rob was always someone I used to look up to because he's the only person I know who wakes up every morning with so much enthusiasm to create something new and path-breaking. And usually he does. With truckloads of awards for his work, his dedication to on-air promotions, and a distinct voice for commercials, Rob is still the undisputed king of promos. And it's our honor to welcome Rob to our studios for this special episode of What's Stewing. Welcome, Rob, to What's Stewing. We are so thrilled to have you finally on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. That's fantastic.
Rob, you have been in the business for the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
I remember in 2002 coming to Singapore for my first Promax as a producer. And the first of the many presentations I have seen is of you on stage. And that really inspired me when I went back.
Excellent. I'm glad I inspired you to get up there and do whatever. Yeah.
So tell me about 3 decades
Yeah.
of doing promos and how has that changed? How things have progressed or regressed in the last 3 decades?
Progressed and regressed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff has, physically and technologically has changed. We've gone from here to where we are now. We've gone through from SD to HD, 3D, 4K, UHD, HDR, AI now, everything else. And then, of course, technology-wise, we've got, everything's a TV now. That's a TV, of course. This is a TV. Your iPad's a TV. Your phone's a TV. Everything's a TV. And everybody's a content creator. Everybody's doing this and that. So you have to find out different ways as far as promotions are concerned to actually utilize that. And so because you're not necessarily on the TV as a platform, you can utilize the other platforms more cleverly and in tandem, or in ways to actually use social and that sort of stuff. And so, and then because a lot of other people have gotten into the game, we talked earlier about Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, and it's not just them. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of other streamers that are actually out there. And so we're in the magic time of television, or television's second magic field, where there's nothing but a bazillion hours of content out there. The thing is that the amount of eyeballs that can watch it are still exactly the same. So, you have to be able to figure out how you're going to find the right audience and communicate with the right audience. And you're not going to get the big numbers that you had before. You're not going to get 2 million homes watching the final of AF anymore, right?
Yeah.
But although live does mean something, nobody necessarily cares about that. Although premieres,
appointment viewing is
appointment
dead.
viewing, not necessarily. If it's something that if it's promoted right and it's done in a particular way, it can be appointment viewing, and people do like. And linear still is going strong in some areas, but people have really gotten used to the whole binge thing, where Netflix and those guys will make. They're not going to make 28 episodes or 52 episodes. They make 6 hours or 8 episodes, and people wait until those things are done, as opposed to watching every release on a Wednesday, and then they'll just binge everything through. How that goes. So promo people, though, through the course of all of it, haven't changed. Promo people are still, the sexiest people on the planet. As far as the television ecosystem is concerned, there's still everything and everything all rolled into one. You know better than I do. They're all writers, producers, directors, editors, animators, voiceovers, whatever. They do anything and everything. They are an advertising agency and a production company and a post-production company all rolled into one. They are really special people. It's not a job for everybody, because the pressure, the turnaround, the other things are involved. There are not for everybody, but for the right person, it's a great thing. So for the whole idea of what's changed, Netflix has changed a lot of stuff for us because of their whole thing before when they launched of, it's all content, no commercials. Other people jumped on board like Disney and those kind of guys. And they said, yeah. Let's stream everything. We don't necessarily need all these channels. Let's do it in that particular way. Now things are, now that that's all taken place, now fast channels have come, other things have come, and everything's come around full circle. And promos are becoming, or people are understanding how important promos actually are and doing whatever.
So before I get to the next question, I think most of our audiences don't know the difference between a promo and an ad.
Okay.
What's the difference between the two?
Okay. Well, as far as it goes, it's pretty easy. There's Satan, and then there's the good people. In the words of the late great George Carlin, advertising sells you things people don't need, don't want, can't afford. And and it's horrible by preying on their fears and insecurities. That's all they do. Is they if I buy these jeans, my butt's going to look nice, and Tommy's going to invite me to the dance. If I buy this car, Miss Agnes in accounting is going to not see my bald spot so much and might think that I have a bigger whatever, and then might go out with me. That's what advertising actually does. They deal with you in a particular way, and they look at you as a consumer. What promos do? Promos are lovely. Promos are lovely people. What we do is we invite you to a shared experience. We get you to, we try and get you to try on, little bits of programming. They invite you to a shared experience that's taking place pretty much right where you are, sitting right there. We speak directly to viewers in a way that they appreciate and they understand. We don't talk down to anybody. We engage them emotionally and hopefully help build up a fan base for what that would be. And then we're also trying to get them involved in, we'll talk about branding a little bit later, go through there. But that's what promos are all about. Promos are very, very different than ad sales. And the weird thing is, a lot of television groups that you actually go and work with, marketing has brought in an agency to help, define and do up their image and that sort of stuff, which is terrible because advertising doesn't understand television. They understand how to use television to sell to people, but they don't understand television. We understand television to be a living, breathing, beautiful thing. And if you do it right and if you promote right, then people understand what that personality is. And so people get that perception, that idea of what you're all about. And so you have that it's like a snap decision, snap judgment of who you are, right? So like when we talk about Disney, people have an image in their head of what that would be. Nat Geo, they got an image of what that would be. Astro used to be something, and now maybe that whole idea has actually changed as well. But I mean, promos are pretty much the backbone of any broadcaster or streamer. They're the ones that are, again, communicating directly with the audience. They're the ones that are sort of putting forth of who they are. It's like when you meet somebody in a bar for the first time. Not that anybody, I drink a lot, so I use a lot of bar references. So it's like when you meet somebody in a bar for the first time, it's how you present yourself, it's how you feel, it's how you're trying to make them feel, it's how you're trying to get along with them, that kind of thing. And if you present things wrongly or you present things as a lie or do whatever, you've lost that relationship completely, and then whatever. And then you got to get your wingman to come in, and you have to start doing these other promos about, where, that are bragging spots of the best of this and the only artists and da-da-da. Or you get another wingman to come in and, according to the Wall Street Journal, 4 stars, whatever, da-da-da, that kind of crap. But still, promos do that. We're a relationship builder with the audience. We respect the audience, where advertising doesn't. Sorry, that's a really long way to say agencies are shit.
Great. So, but now there's so many platforms.
Yes.
And because there are so many platforms, the attention span is going less and lesser for the audience. Mm-hmm. So how is it, from a promo perspective, how is it important for promos to grab that attention, to let the viewers know that you have to watch that film or watch that TV show on that particular time? Is it more important now, or is just by the way that we have to make a promo, we have to make a promo?
No, good Lord, no. The promos are the lifeblood of everything, right? It's like, not necessarily, religion and other stuff, but I mean, like for media, sure, for it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a movie and trailers and that sort of stuff, or a television show, or channel marketing, or a platform marketing, whatever. Promos Promos are the most valuable airtime that you have, period. You're speaking directly to the audience that you've already got. So if you're lucky enough to have a place like Media Prima or whatever, aside from the commercials that are actually there, we have, basically the television business for Media Prima has been the same since the start. They make great programming, they promote that great programming, they get you to tune into that great programming, and just when it gets really interesting, they stop that programming, they try to sell you crap. And they do that several times an hour, right? So, but within theirs, that's the whole drive for getting you to watch that programming, that's them, for them. Whereas other places, not necessarily driving that so much. The better example would be like, do you remember the first Spider-Man movie that came out?
Yeah.
Promax, the what you were talking about before. I saw a guy speaking on behalf of Sam Raimi.
Yeah. Sam Raimi.
Raimi.
Yeah.
When he had done the first Spider-Man, they looked at it to take over their marketing thing, much like Ryan Reynolds and his guys do for whatever. These are the first guys to actually take a look at it. They looked at when Spider-Man was coming out, when it was coming out, and what played last year, and what it played before was The Mummy, the one Brendan Fraser and that sort of stuff. I know this is really old, okay, but still, nonetheless, it's a lesson to be learned. So they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, we've got, basically we know what audience that's going to be. That came out, did all these numbers, and it was all these, 12 to 25-year-old guys that came out, action stuff and did whatever. They looked at what the Mummy presentation was all about, action. They said, okay, fine, we don't really need that. With Spider-Man, we already know we've got that same audience built in. We know we've got Spider-Man fans that are going to be, what we need to find a way to get other people that are going to enjoy this movie. And we're not going to lie to anybody, but we're going to find a way to do that. So they did a Nickelodeon spot. If you remember inside the show, there's lots of shots that they have where kids are, Spider-Man or do whatever, or he does stuff where they built spots around that. They did the Oprah spot where, they have... that's the Spider-Man upside down and he kisses whatever. So they built it around the love angle, whatever. So they had that spot. They did another spot for older people that remember Spider-Man that, but maybe felt that they were too old to actually see an action film. They built a spot around just for New York where everything actually takes place. And it took place shortly after September 11th. Yeah. So they had that sort of stuff. They had all of these spots, something like 32 different spots targeted to all of these different audiences. And that time when it came out, it was the biggest movie premiere that the States had ever seen. It's been since destroyed by a few others. But I mean, in that idea of promotion and getting...
So it was targeted marketing at the time.
Very, very targeted. And it's not, and not scattergun. Like you're actually thinking about who you're talking to. You're trying to figure out how you're actually going to get to them. At the time, of course, we had a lot of linear broadcasters going to take care of that. So the Nickelodeon spot is called the Nickelodeon spot because they played it on Nick. The Oprah spot because they played it on Oprah, but they also found women's channels and that sort of stuff as well. So yes, it's very targeted going that way. And then you've got other stuff where you take advantage of things like on YouTube, for example. You can't turn away for the first 5 seconds of an ad. So if you design an ad that fits in 5 seconds, that's funny and memorable and that sort of stuff, that's great. But if you have an ad that's longer than 5 seconds, there was a series of spots done by IKEA. Have you ever see those? Yeah. Just a guy washing dishes, and then it points to the faucet is this much and the cloth is this much, and he's just sitting there and he looks up at you, as you're doing, and you go away, and you don't. You just sit there and you keep watching him wash dishes for like 90 seconds, and he just keeps talking to you about go away. There's nothing to see here. It's just washing, and it's just and it's just selling. Clever. It's a clever way to sell IKEA stuff as well. So if you know how to target the right audience, you know what to actually give those guys, drive them back. That's what you're after.
The role of promos basically was devised to in shaping the perception and expectation for TV show or a film.
Well, yeah, but still.
But how does it impact for the success of the show?
First off, it's huge. It's the make or break to begin with. Whether people are going to see it or not. It's how it's presented. But at the same time, you can't lie, right? You've got all of these, Netflix included, of people that are actually out there that create expectations for something, and you're supposed to be managing those expectations of what they are. So they'll have a show like Red Notice, which huge. They've got The Rock, they've got Ryan Reynolds, they've got Gal Gadot, they've got all these other things. They spend all this money on ground. It's going to be this thing, and then the movie comes out, and it's nothing like that at all. They've got, or not they, but I mean, other examples would be like Earth, whatever, the one with Will Smith and his son. how that was presented and promoted. It's going to be this whole thing with, Jaden Smith and Will Smith and da-da-da. Yeah, Will Smith breaks his leg in the first 2 minutes, and it's all about Jaden and kind of people. You got Mobius or whatever his name is, right? Jared Leto. Everything Jared Leto's in, stay away from as far as the, the Suicide Squad, for example. Again, it was promoted in a particular way, but it wasn't like that. So people got pissed off a lot with that. So that's the bad angle. The good angle is when you have, stuff that's really cleverly done and put together. Netflix 2022, if you ever saw the lead up for that, it was so clever. They went through all the programming that was being done at the time, whether that be Mark, Beastie, not the new kid on the block, Marky Mark or whatever his name is. Then a vampire movie. They've got Kevin Hart. They've got all of these different people that are, big time movie stars that are in all of this programming that are all saying a little bit of the promo as it actually goes through the lead up of all the content that's actually happening, what to do on TV night, Netflix and chill, all put together as one spot. And when you see that spot, you just get this feeling of, they don't belong to Netflix, but it's part of the Netflix family and do whatever. And now you're actually being invited into this whole thing. And you start to understand that, it's the viewing
it's an event.
Yeah, but the whole thing is that particular way. Yeah, if for campaigns, yes. I mean, if it's designed properly, you've got your little teaser that comes out. You understand how you want to snowball into how that's actually going to launch out. So, and then but again. It's not like the old days where you just do that on your channel or your platform. You've got to find ways to actually do that socially. You got to, and you can't just do one thing for social. TikTok's very different than Facebook. It's very different than, Instagram's very different than whatever. So you have to be able to design things properly, but not that they're the same audiences. But I mean, you utilize those platforms, what they are. They have different viewer expectations and different styles of what they actually be. But I mean, the one that was done for Netflix 2022 is a wonderful example of everybody getting their act together, the whole place actually working together. It gave you this feeling that it was this, you were being invited to, be a part of something that, was bigger and better than what it is. And you didn't mind, paying for Netflix because you saw the quality right across the board with all these great big movie stars, with all the stuff that's taking place, and they're breaking the fourth wall all the way through. They're talking directly to you. It was really, really good. I don't know why they didn't do it last year, but the year before was fantastic.
So now that social media is on the rise, and the consumption of trailers and promos have gone up, do you think there is a lot more pressure now for producers, show producers and film producers, to create better content because the perception of from a promo perspective or trailer perspective has really, like what you said about the 2022 spot, it has really taken the expectations really high. Do you think with so much of consumption of promos and trailers right now, do you think it brings in a lot more pressure on the creators?
Well, I think that the creators themselves are always, putting pressure on themselves to create the best thing. I'm sure that nobody starts out to make something that's bad, right? So, in my family alone, we've got my sister works in the Directors Guild in Canada. My other sister's a production designer for movies. Her husband, lovely guy, is an Academy Award nominated, producer, works in films and stuff, and lots of stuff. And the conversations of things that have just not gone, the way it looked when it was actually being done, not necessarily, how it actually came out, but it's not necessarily their fault. Now, as far as the content creators are concerned, I'm sure that there's always pressure for, this worked with these guys, let's try something like that. Or, you don't want to be a cookie cutter. You want to be the guy that's, the next thing that's going to go up. And that's the stuff that's easier to promote, or more exciting and more fun to promote. The stuff that's easier to promote, the stuff that's already been done. You just, insert name here, insert whatever. So, yeah, the thing is with so much content that's actually out there, there's this thing called the paradox of choice. So it's like the more choices you have, the less choices you make. Back in the old days, as far as TV is concerned, with cable channels, when they had 30 plus cable channels, people watched on average like 20 of the 30. And then when you got more than 50, people were watching something like 15. So then when you got into a 100 cable universe or 100 channel universe, people are watching like 6. It's just weird. You know, it's just like the more choices you have, the less choices you seem to make. And that's certainly the case for now when you've got all of these things out there. But all of the things are still being controlled by eyeballs. They're still being, you know, how many people are actually watching. You still got things that are still built on ad sales. You've still got, you know, this is 2024. And people are still talking about ratings for particular shows. And so, whereas you can see that show anytime you want to, because that's the big difference from the first question you asked me, which I forgot to say. People can watch whatever they want, whenever they want to watch it. You know, it's no more a situation of, you know, the appointment viewing. Yeah. But so ratings shouldn't be that important unless there's an ad agency involved in doing whatever, and promises have been made, and you have to figure out how you're actually going to get that done. Fine, okay, but still, what you really want, especially if you're a pay TV platform, like, you know, I can't think of one at the moment, you know, Astro perhaps. What's really important there is churn. You want to keep people happy. You want to keep people on board. You want to make sure that, you know, they understand that is value for money. That you don't want to do anything that reminds them that you're actually paying for the service. You don't want to do anything that's actually going to piss them off, do whatever. Media Premium can get away with anything they want because it's free. Okay, no big deal. But I pay a lot of money for this other service, and why do I need to do this? So there's been a few mistakes they've made recently that, you know, I don't necessarily want to get into. But
I'll get to that question later.
Okay, fine, whatever. I'm just, you know, sitting here. Yeah, I don't want to talk ill about the dead.
So, in your opinion, right, what distinguishes a memorable, impactful promo or trailer from a forgetful one, and how do you strive to achieve the distinction in your own work?
The ones that are great are the ones that are, it's the ones you remember, right?
Yeah.
Like Netflix 2022, or, you know, the Macintosh hammer throw in 1984. Not necessarily that, but I mean, as far as the promos are concerned, it is the ones you remember. It's the ones that actually break through. It's the ones that make an emotional connection with you. It's the ones that really touch you. If it's the ones that, you know, the cookie cutter stuff that you've seen all over the place, you're just ignoring that, and it's just going to go in one ear and out the other. There used to be this thing of the rule of 3 with promos. You had to see it, you had to hear it, you had to understand it, and then you get it, right? But if the quality of the work isn't there, the other stuff isn't there, then it's not going to actually happen. And that's where you actually come in with, you know, using great promo producers that have, you know, their skills are improving constantly all the time about how they're doing editing. I mean, visually, there's a visual language with promos, whatever, you know, it is. And so, you know, you don't necessarily it can speak for itself, right? About as far as, you know, what's actually taking place, where it's actually going. Good guys go left to right, bad guys go right to left, kind of thing. But there's a visual language they're actually working with, the music that they're actually working with, the sound effects, the script, everything, all of those things being put together, and all of those things actually working as one. You know, it connects directly with the audience as long as you've got that right idea going through there. So if you connected directly with them, you made that connection, then it's worked.
Going back to the Astro question, you have spent a considerable amount of time working at Astro Network.
I did, yeah.
And you have pretty much built up the whole team.
I did.
And so what was your key takeaway when you left Astro a few years ago? When you joined Astro and when you left Astro, from a work perspective, from a creative perspective, and from promos perspective, promos and branding perspective, what was your key takeaway from working at Astro?
I was really lucky before Astro that I'd been able to work with different groups, and I got to work in China and the Philippines and Thailand and India and all these different places, and all these different jobs, and I got a great understanding of those cultures a little bit, and promoting those cultures and having fun in those cultures, and you know where the lines actually are and where you can actually have a little bit of fun with. And then when I was invited to come into Astro, you found that, you know, Malaysia is a very different kettle of fish to other places. There's no, you know, although there's one language, there's actually, you know, 23 different languages, and it's, you know, it's not Malay, it's, you know, it's Chinese, but it's not just Chinese, it's Mandarin, Hokkien, and Cantonese. You have this kind of Malay, you have that kind of Malay, you have, you know, Tamil, and then you have this other kind of Tamil, then you have, you know, different tastes and that sort of stuff going through there. So at the time, there was a whole bunch of different promo teams all working with different channel groups. And there was no consistency in anything going through. A lot of the channel managers didn't understand. Well, it's still a problem to this day, of some people that are managers or in authority, they get confused between their taste and good taste, right? So they don't necessarily understand the difference between the two. And that's why you have a creative director usually who, points the way properly and gets things done, right? So the big thing for everybody, I don't know if I said this yet, but I normally harp this home to everybody, is that you have to be able to see things from the viewer's perspective, right? So it's if you're making something that's speaking directly to them, you have to be able to see it from their side. You have to be able to step out of your skin and see it from their side. And it's very, although it's easy to say, it's certainly not easy to do. You can't get a lot of people to really grasp what that actually means and what that actually feels like. And going through their promo producers, they get it almost innately, right? So the other stuff for promos is that they have to make it, simple, obvious, intuitive, and emotional, right? So they understand that you're condensing everything down to a very short amount of time. You're conveying an emotion, you're conveying an idea. It's got to be simple. But in order to really get that whole thing through there, it's got to be obvious, right? And then even in another layer, it's just intuitive. You understand what that means. You understand what that sound is. You understand what that other stuff is, right? And then and emotional. So, and there's lots of different emotions to actually work with. Before we talked about advertising agencies that only want to go and talk, they prey on your fear and they prey on your insecurities. And sometimes they use sex and that sort of stuff to get in there. Whereas supposedly there's 27 other different emotions to actually go with. And promos, yes, sometimes use sex and lust and that sort of stuff. But for the most part, they use humor, which really works really, really well. But, you have to, it has to be really good in order to get across there. But they have to use a whole variety of other things in their bag of tricks to actually get those things done. And again, they've got to make everything work together. The script and the graphics and the audio and the voiceover, again, which is another super important thing. If anybody's actually out there in TV land and is looking for a proper voice to actually do anything for them, I can only think of one particular. I am your guy. That's exactly right. Really cheap prices, fantastic stuff. Whatever. Call me anytime, day or night. Operators are standing by. I'm sorry, I forgot what we were talking about.
We're talking about Astro. What was your key takeaway?
We were talking about shit. Oh yeah, right. Those guys. See, I just put them out of my mind. It was such a horrific experience. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was okay. I loved 90% of my time at Astro. Sorry, when I first got there, they all had these different things. Their channel managers, whatever. And then Mr. Go, who's the head of Maxis now, he was the head of the marketing team. And he understood that there's a disconnect between everything. And he really welcomed me into helping him put things together, create one team, create how, everything was actually working together, and then looking at it more like, how we were going to be speaking to our viewers and then potential viewers at the same time outside. So there's a way to be speaking inside to people and people that are already on Astro, and a way to be speaking to people outside that already have Astro, but in a way that you're trying to get other people to actually come in. And so then there was all the different levels of different paid channels to actually work out that sort of stuff. That was done quite well. So moving on from there, Astro grew and grew and grew. We went through a few, different technical revolutions that were there. That was wonderful to actually see it grow that part. We had a lot of new channels. We grew to there was well over 150 channels at one point. Where from international, from whenever we had big sporting events and that sort of stuff going on, you came on board for a while and took over the entire Malay area and helped those guys actually really raise their game as far as that was concerned. And then we concentrated on all the others. We made sure that everything on as far as the brand was concerned and the platform was concerned, were raising the game across the board. We understood that we were it was the one big pay TV in a free TV country, right? Yeah. Where you had everything else out there competing against us. Then we started with movies, the lovely Justina and all her team, getting that stuff going up there. And then, things kind of, turned a bit. So And then COVID happened, and that was a situation where we took the opportunity to try and rebond with the community because viewership, everybody's home, constantly all day long. And so we tried to convince some of the channels that prime time didn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as, at prime time, all day was prime time.
Yeah.
Fathers are going to be home watching with their daughters and doing whatever. And people are going to be really interested in getting as much information as they possibly can. It was a little scary time. They wanted to know, what's happening, where this stuff was, what places were on lockdown, when I can go out, where I can go. And so we were trying to convey that information as much as possible, not just through Awani, but on all their other channels as well. Plus, trying to teach people about the simple stuff at the time, which is second nature now. Wearing masks, washing your hands. Don't stick your tongue in strangers' mouths and that kind of stuff as well. And so we were doing all of that, having fun, pushing that thing through. And at that time, there was a management change. So the new management came in at a sort of an odd time for new management to come in because they weren't really in, but sort of were at the same time. Although the promo teams and some of the managers were actually in building, these other guys were more like,
Essential workers.
Essential workers. We were the essential workers. That's
Imagine promo team as an essential worker in a
That's
broadcast
right,
station.
exactly. Yeah. I know. But the others weren't. So a lot of the meetings would take place with Zoom through a variety of different stuff as well. And so, you got the idea that the new managers, you knew what they were trying to do and what their end game was. It's just that they were making decisions based on perhaps not the right information at the right time, or that decision just was made irrespective of what was actually going on around them at that time. So you had things like one of the first things they need to cut back on a lot of people. That's fine. I have the most amount of people, so that's okay. They were going to bring in consultants to help me figure out how to do that. I was excited to be working with an outside group, consultants, and great to teach me other things that I don't know. I'm always excited to learn. I read every day. I'm going through anything I actually can to be better at it. It's what promo people do, right? But these guys turned out to be, wow. I don't know how to say it gently, but they were terrible. They had the slightest clue of, you had to show them on a remote where to actually press and turn on the TV kind of thing. Not that bad, but I mean, they didn't understand break structures or commercials and promos and that sort of stuff, or how things were actually done and that sort of thing. So you had to hold their hand and walk them through a lot of stuff. And eventually we just had to jump to the end of the game. How many people do you need to get rid of? We tried to find a compromising way to actually get there, and once that was there, to see where that would actually lead to. But at the same time, there was also, some bad decisions because we needed some of that extra manpower to actually do some stuff. They had a launch of, they decided to relaunch certain packages and rebrand some of those certain packages at a time when, because of COVID, everybody was going out there almost free of charge. So you had a plethora of streaming services that, 6 months free, 8 months free, where you actually try it out and have whatever. So you didn't necessarily need Astra for the extra entertainment. And there were no sports going on. Olympics had been pushed off. You had all these things actually happening. So to rebrand your stuff and to repackage things, it got very confusing for a lot of people. And then got confusing about what went with, what their packages. And then if I already am an Astro customer, do I have to change this thing or do I have to not? And then we got in to working with Disney and Netflix. If you can't beat them, join them, which is fine. But then, Netflix had already been established, and then we were promoting Netflix quite heavily internally and externally, but Netflix was also promoting themselves with Media Prima. Netflix was also promoting themselves as their own content that was going out there, so that was kind of a weird thing. And then Disney was another one where we're promoting ourselves as launching Disney. But Disney were kind of promoting themselves as their own launch as well. And then when we did launch Disney, it was kind of it didn't go very well. the phone-in system, the login system for Disney kind of fell over, and a lot of fathers were quite angry with me because their kids had been banging at their legs for Disney, 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 Disney. We want so for the first couple of days they had to contact Disney Direct, and that's how they got it. They didn't necessarily get it with Astro. So there's a few things that came back. One of the new management had looked at promos and felt that he'd seen a model at Foxtel that had, we got to have 850 spots. That's the maximum amount of spots you can have transposed from there to Astro. And Astro was making, at that time, double the amount of spots. Not necessarily because we had more channels, but because we had more languages. We have, a variety of very, very different content than what you'd have for, something like Foxtel. Plus Foxtel, I'd worked at Foxtel and launched a channel at Foxtel. Foxtel's not, the be-all, end-all business model that you really want to, be modeling yourself after, but still okay. We managed to find ways to cut down, not necessarily to 850, but certainly cut down the amount of spots. And then what I'm seeing as a result of that now, a couple of years later, you're seeing a lot of the spots are more upsell than anything else, which is pretty weird for when you as a viewer. Again, it's one of those things where you're not putting yourself in the viewer's perspective. Well, you take your product and you put it out there in a certain position. Your audience sees it from their certain perspective, and then they have a perception of the entire thing. The last thing you want to do to them, during that time period, is to remind them that they're actually paying for your service. And it just seems that a lot of these spots that are actually going out there are pushing, upsell. And the other thing to be wary about is that in the trades. Last week, there was a Comcast study that had been done where since COVID and all of the other things that have gone through there, all of the different streaming services that launched, most American homes have, depending on their income going up now, but most American homes have 4 different streaming services there and 2 that they've actually paid for. On top of that, Comcast or a cable company. But with the cable companies, they found that there was 15% of, on average, viewers that had their viewership time had dropped by 75%. So they're watching it, much less than they used to, but they haven't churned out yet. And there's a further 11% that's between 50 and 75%. So together, that's nearly a third of their viewers that are watching less than half of what they used to, that are spending more of that time watching on other streaming services that are actually there, but they haven't churned out yet. So there's a big area of churn that's there. So again, it's a situation where you don't want to be, in that area. So last week in the States is the upfronts that's taking place. Yeah. Comcast came out. They've got a deep bundle that they're actually doing. The way they've put it, they've got a bundle because it's getting very cold from out there. They need, get as many people in the sleeping bag as possible and share the, whatever. And so they've got a deep bundle where they've got Apple Plus and Netflix and whoever else is at Peacock, I think. Yeah. All pushed in together as one big price for what they have, and that's it going out there. So it's becoming back to this thing. Then you've got Apple TV or Disney and Warner. Is that right? Yeah. Disney, Warner, Discovery are now working with, of course, everything that Disney owns, Hulu and
Warner, Discovery, Disney's on his own.
Yeah. Oh, so is it?
Yeah.
Because so you got Warner, Discovery, then you've got those guys are teaming up with Hulu and
Disney
Plus. That's right. So that's their deep one, and then you've got the other guys that are teaming up, of course, with Netflix and everybody else. So everybody's banding together in these giant things, which are, when you look at the ecosystems of them, it's just cable TV all over again. So we're coming back to what it is. And now all the fast channels are actually out there too. So you've got, Pluto TV or Tubi or any of these other guys that are actually out there, free services that are, you see how they've grown in the last 2 years because they've only been around for the last couple of years, right?
So you think that's the model which Astro is going to be following?
I don't. It's a situation that Astro has to be aware of, that they have to, instead of reacting, which is what they seem to be doing now, they got to be planning out for other stuff that's there. They presently do have Suka, which is their
OTT platform.
yeah, which is, you know, they've got a couple of fast channels on there, but I mean, there's nothing that you really, you know, would pay for really. And then plus at the same time, Suka is a little confusing, whether it is Astro or isn't Astro, and whether, you know, because you can get EPL on it, well, not, you know, or you can get different sports on it, you can do whatever, that's fine. That's a great service on the side. So I'm not really sure how that works in tandem anymore. I'm just looking at it from a consumer's, a viewer's standpoint. So I'm not sure. I mean, Astro, the spots that I've seen at the moment are all seem to be pushing upsell. There's a CopyTM kind of spot that Astro Business. Mm-hmm. So if you have a CopyTM or a Daipaidong or whatever, you get an Astro. But the spot that they made is this really weird song and dance number that doesn't say anything about anything.
I don't have Astro, so I can't comment.
Well, neither do I. They took it away the day that I went home from Astro. They cut me off. Like those guys, after I gave them 15 years of it. 15 years and they gave me nothing. There's no golden handshake, no golden package, no, not even a goodbye card. Like no shares, no nothing. They just said, "Oh, on your bike, off you go. And by the way, give us your Astro back." It's going so, but I'm not bitter. I'm not. Okay, I'm fine. I was bitter for a day, and then I got over it. And I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. Okay, but anyway, the other stuff with the 50% and the other stuff going on, I would be very, very careful about. So yeah, everything's going back to cable TV. Fast channels are coming. Fast channels are in India. Tata, those are the guys, the big cable guys in
Reliance Jio.
Yeah, those guys. There was a conference. Oh, sorry, a conference in Singapore in December.
Idiot.
Yeah, where that guy was talking on stage about how many fast channels they've got. 80 fast channels already?
That's
it's just nuts.
Just like nothing for them, yeah.
Yeah, we got 80, you know? And they, what? And then go to Thailand, how many fast channels you got? What's a fast channel? You know, but they're on their way, right? So all fast channels are for people at home is there's free advertising supported television. So for the most part, for the most of them from the States, it's basically, it's very niche specific. So if you like Friends, for example, they just play every episode of Friends, period. But it stops every 12 minutes, just like the old days, and sells you stuff, right? So it's just lots of advertising. But depending if you're watching on your phone or depending if you're watching your TV, you get different ads and that sort of stuff. Depending on what part of the country you're in, it knows, you know, where you are and it sells you stuff. So it's a big, big selling thing. But it's free, so everybody likes it that way. So again, it would be something I would be concerned about. So that's where the advertising dollars are going. And so Astro, even though it's a pay TV service and it's supposed to act like a pay TV service, and when we were there, we tried very, very hard to make sure that it was a world-class pay TV service that just happened to be, you know, based in Malaysia. Yeah. It could compete with anything on the planet. When we did, and we did a great job over there. And then. But still, advertising is the big thing that's actually there. So it's still advertising supported, and it's more and more than ever before. So they've got to watch out for churn and make sure that you're not driving customers away. You've got to stop reminding people they're actually paying for stuff. You've got to stop shoving things like that down their throat. You've got to make a better content stuff, the promotions. You've got to stop doing upsell to them constantly all the time. And you've got to be able to find ways to communicate in the ways that they're going to be happy with you.
See, promos and branding goes hand in hand.
Damn straight.
Yeah. So all this while, branding was like sacred all the time, because even we tried to do something different, we got like slaps on the wrist not to even touch the branding in any way. But nowadays, in the name of creativity, branding has been thrown around from here to there, and nobody takes it that seriously. And what is your take on that?
I take it really seriously, but I don't take, you can do whatever you want to the brand as long as it is in the brand voice, as long as it's, speaking from what the brand is. The brand to me is like when I said before about, the guy in the bar, it's a personification of who you are, right? It's like for TV, if we're talking about a channel, then that channel is, it's who you are. First off, it's not soap, right? It's not shoes. As far as advertisers are concerned, that's what they sell. That thing stays the same day after day after day. The soap's the same. The shoes are the same. TV is not like that at all. It's organic or dynamic or whatever you want to call it. It changes constantly all the time. Every day in TV land is a new day. You're restarting with your viewers. You're restarting with the people that are there for you. And so branding is that little picture that we talked about before that people are carrying around in their heads about who you actually are. It comes from their perception of who you are. The perception comes from what they see, and what you giving them is that perception, your presentation that you're actually putting through there. So you have to do it in a particular way. It doesn't talk to these people and whatever. So your branding voice, in your promos anyway, is your tone of voice, your copy, how you write things, the language that you actually use, the style of your editing, the graphics, your fonts choice, the way you actually use it, the animating, your sound effects, your voiceover, again, good, and then your whole layup. As far as taking the brand physically itself and moving it around, having fun with it, be my guest, however you want, as long as it comes back to represent whoever you are. The terrible posters that have been out recently about some of the content on Astro Warna, I believe, like wow, that's taking things in a really, maybe somebody was trying to experiment and have some fun with it, but that's screwing with the brand, because that looks like it was done by a 6-year-old using MS Paint, and it just doesn't come off, and it doesn't actually work. And but for other places, yes, you can have a lot of fun with doing things, and some great graphics, some great things are done screwing with brands. Not locally necessarily, but I mean, other stuff. Nickelodeon had a great time with a lot of things.
MTV, Channel V.
And Channel V, for God's sakes. I mean, we built that whole thing around it, right? It was the one brand that every time you saw it, it was different, right? Yeah. We could use anything physical, anything whatever, any style, and just have it there. But you knew what it was, right? And that's how it actually lived. And it changed culture to culture to culture, but it was always the same. And it was all about the music, and it was all about the other stuff, and it was all about the irreverence, and it was all about the fun. And it's the personality, right, of what it actually is. And so as long as you got along with that personality, and we used humor as the best as we possibly could. It got serious from time to time, which made things stand out a little bit more. But it was the humor constantly driving all the time, and the irreverence that really drove that brand. So you can do it. And these days, yes, I think it's just as important than ever for that brand, because it's not. Lee Hunt used to talk about, do you watch movies or do you watch studios, right? So, how important is it to say that it's a Warner Brothers movie? How important is it to say it's Universal? That doesn't necessarily apply to the platform you're actually with. How that platform presents it and it speaks with it, its tone of voice. And plus, especially if you're paying for that platform, it's really, really important that that brand is not necessarily diluted in the people's heads that are paying for it. They want to know that that thing is value for money, or they don't need to be reminded that they're actually paying for it constantly all the time.
See, OTT platforms, like whether it's Netflix or whether it's Amazon or Disney, they're spending millions of dollars on promos itself. On every new content piece they bring in, they spend a huge amount of money. Whereas the traditional broadcasters have gone from spending money on promotions to doing a stitch job, from putting shot together and just making a promo just to put something on air. How did we land up in putting a stitch job on TV as a promo?
It's the same old story. It's bean counters that got involved in first place, where it's this situation where things are cyclical. Remember how Disney used to expand and contract? So they'd have everybody working in Singapore, and then suddenly there's they'd be out in different offices or whatever. The whole thing about cookie cutter promos, if that's what you're talking about, it looks the same, whatever, could have been made by anybody. They don't work. They can work a little bit, but they don't necessarily work. But they've been done that way because that's what has been left with the amount of people that are there, the amount of priorities that they've actually got to put together, what they've got to do. And it's just the soul has gone out of, whatever they're actually creating. And so that whole thing, when people do good work, when people care and they're actually in there and really doing the best that they can and are festering over, and killing themselves over this one edit, and they're working until 11 or 12 o'clock at night, but they're not getting any overtime, but they're just trying to make the best thing, is because they're putting their heart and soul into the work themselves, right? It's not a cookie cutter thing. However, you've ended up in this particular case where, maybe, they've had a lot of staff cutbacks, maybe they've got whatever. Maybe, it's people that haven't been properly trained that are in these jobs. Maybe the people that, were in there before, they had to let them go because they were getting paid too much and they wanted to replace them and they got new people in, but nobody's really brought them up. You get a lot of that things there. And as far as Netflix and Disney and all these other guys, yeah, they're spending cash and they are doing it. But at the same time, they were doing that before when they had that model of, all the content and no commercials. And that's not the case anymore, right? Yep. You've got, they're selling airtime. So, and it's, previously they were saying, oh, it's just going to be lead-ins and then it's going to be extras. That's not necessarily the case. They're actually doing commercial breaks. And so because they're doing commercial breaks, that also means that they're going to be doing promos. That also means they're going to be doing other stuff. And so, things are coming back better. And so, those guys have basically dusted off the rule book of what the other guys that now have the cookie cutter stuff. Yeah. They've just taken what they used to do and said, that's what we're going to do now. This is what we're actually going to get done. And so if those places continue to do, bad work, they're only doing themselves a disservice. They're doing their audience a disservice. They're not doing themselves any favors. Let's put it that way.
Now, if you look at technology, there are ready-made templates available in the market, whether it's Envato, whether it's CapCut, and people are now cutting promos on those ready-made templates. Mm-hmm. And you can pass it off as a pretty average promo, if you're going to put it. How have we reached to that level that a templated
again,
job?
It's because of the bean cutters. But technology always gets simpler and simpler and simpler. I mean, if you remember how difficult it used to be to use Photoshop, or
Abid.
Abid. Oh, great. Yeah. Then so that's how difficult things used to be, and they just get simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler to the masses that are actually out there. So my daughter, who's no technical genius by any stretch of the imagination, helped me out with a presentation the other day saying, why aren't you using, this guy's? And so took me over to something that works with Mac. I can't remember what it was, that just gave out a bunch of different templates in Keynote. Use this one, this one, this one, this style, this style, this style. Put in your stuff, it's done. Holy crap! And then you just go back and you change the images and that sort of stuff. And I was amazed. It was not a bad effort that went through there. But those things, they're for not necessarily the end result. They're for the masses. They're there for my daughter. The
non-promo producers.
The non-promo producers. The people that are influencers. The people that are making their own content. The people that are
they're
trying
making
to sell
more money than us.
Making far more money than us, as far as I know. That are going out there doing that. But it gets worse because it's also voiceover AI, right? So there's very few really, really, really in a world great guy voiceovers available 24 hours a day. But no, I do a lot of the stuff. A lot of stuff I used to do is all done by AI for different places. There's some here we have Fly FM, which is all AI voices. We have a place in Singapore that's about to experiment with some other things like that as well. I get a lot of stuff that comes in that they're asking me to fix locally, cheaper industrials. So there's somebody in China that's done this thing. They've got the script that's been translated into by Google translated to English. That's gone through their AI thing that goes on to this industrial thing of some new credit card system that they've actually got, and it manages to pile 3 minutes of script into 2 minutes. That's really, and it's awful, right? But it's still the voice is there, and it sounds okay, just acceptable, right? Mm-hmm. And so they ask you, can you revoice this? Can you do it for it? But you got to remove all this script. You got to get rid of all the script, whatever. Again, that's getting better and better and better and better. So the thing is, some voices are getting licensed and that sort of stuff. I like to think that, at the moment, anyway, doesn't really necessarily matter what tool you use, as long as you put your heart and soul into that tool that you're using, and you do make every effort to make what you thought, your art. Just because you're making it easier doesn't mean you should be making it easier.
Yep.
You've got a thought in your head of what that should actually be. That's why promo producers, they go on to be, media gods like yourself. They go on to be film directors. They go on to be commercial directors. They go on to be, all of these other things because they got this fantastic training of doing everything, right? Yeah. But understanding, shooting, 2 for 1, but you don't actually understand shooting 2 for 1 anymore because everything's all digital. You understand about, how, mixing 5 times is going to degrade your audio, but we don't care about that anymore because it's all digital. We've got all of these different things, but just because it's easier doesn't mean, you're going to make less quality. As long as you try hard, you follow through your vision, getting through, and you try to emotionally connect, fine.
Anyone I know who is in promos had never been to a promo school or there's a formal training of promos. And they end up getting trained under an existing promo producer or a creative director. How are we now bringing new blood into the promo industry, so-called promo industry of broadcast promos? What steps have been taken to create the next line of good promo producers?
Promo producers, you don't necessarily recruit promo producers. It's just they seem to gravitate to that area, right? And whether it's word of mouth or whatever, or you get people filtering through the system of wanting to be in media, frustrated directors, writers, whatever. Somebody's got a skill set that's there. And the thing about promos is that you're working with this team of people. Everybody's really good at something. And there's something that they're not that great at. They need help at. And so everybody's helping everybody else to be, better than they can. And so while they're in that team, in that system, they're learning, right, all the time. And they're learning to be better and better and better. But they have to be part of that team. And everybody's got a bit of an ego and do whatever. But usually the better promo producers are actually making things and at the same time thinking about, how the other guys are going to, think about it and what that's actually going to be. If you're a bit of an a-hole inside of that system, you're not going to really survive that well. So you'll be okay for a while, but then you leave. The job's not for everybody, right? But those that are there that do that time that's actually in there, they really will be, getting a hell of a lot more out of it than what. Cause it's not necessarily salary. Nobody becomes a promo producer to get rich. It is, even though you're a promo producer and you can do all these things and you are the backbone of the company and you are, the ones that are speaking directly to the audience, you are the lowest form of life form inside the complete, television ecosystem. You should be honored and jumped up and down, and they should be taking you on beach cruises and having a great time and introducing you to, great opportunities and having
dinners.
You get
night shifts to work on.
Yeah, exactly. You get nothing. You get to wash the boss's car, basically. That's as close as you're going to get, right? Yeah. So I don't know.
So basically, anybody who's passionate enough and wants a miserable life.
It's not a miserable life. That's the thing. I've been doing this my entire life. I know it sounds like a waste of, when I say it out loud, it just sounds so horrible. I've dedicated my life to getting people to tune into, different bits of television that I want them to see. That's what I did. That's what I do. Right? So
I hope there are still a bunch of people who really want to be promo producers who have that kind of, a creative DNA in them to go out and work in promos, because I think that's the only job which trains you in everything.
Yeah.
Right, from writing to producing to directing, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other line of work which has got everything, packed into one job.
No. That's exactly right. It's the one area that you can find. You find where you're good at, and you can explore that. But you have to understand. You have to build up your skills for other things as well. You can't get away with not doing things, right? You have to be good at everything. And then if you're in a good team, you've got a good creative director, somebody that's going to be there, that's going to be building you up as well. Yep. And you're trying to build up, their self-confidence, but also opening up the whole world for, showing them different things of different styles of things that have been done, showing them what has worked in different markets and showing them what hasn't worked in different markets, showing them different film effects, taking them back and showing them, old school effects, how voices can work and how, silence can sometimes be a lot better. Yeah. How using less is more, the whole bit sort of thing. You just don't, just because that's the problem with, when you've got, programs that are going to be able to make promo spots for you. People are going to be using all the bells and whistles constantly all the time.
Yep.
The bells and whistles just, who cares, right? The less bells and whistles, the better. If you use an effect, there's got to be a reason for it that's there. Promo producers know this, and they got this innately inside their head. And then a good creative director is supposed to nurture them, bring them along, and protect them from the evils that are, channel management or ad sales or, the other things that are actually out there. That's what that whole thing is all
Witches
about.
and demons of network television.
Exactly. Yes, and all the politics and all the weirdness that's there.
So lately, you have been helping companies with their in-house branding
Yep.
team, and tell me something about that. What you've been up to lately?
It's basically taking the whole promo thing on the road. So you are, it's still sometimes working with television clients. With this, and plus anybody that's out there that needs help is fine. Just going through there and just doing a boot camp again with their promo teams, seeing where the problems actually might be, help to revitalize what certain things. Maybe there's certain gaps and stop gaps that they haven't actually seen yet. But at the very basics, just getting everybody back up to that kind of form. On the outside of broadcasting and streaming, there's anybody from banks to whatever. They have their own creative teams, and a lot of these places, just like you said, nobody's been really trained or whatever. It's usually looked after by the marketing team, and they're taking their cue from perhaps an advertising agency of what that would be. So a lot of times it's not really set up properly, or the people that are actually inside of it aren't really treated and supported and allowed to grow as what they are. You see a lot of times, especially with banks, a guy that's not necessarily a graphics guy sitting there struggling with trying to fit in a lower third design that's been that he has to put on something else and add on different fonts. You're asking him about, where did this come from? How does it go? I don't know, whatever. And that turns out it was made by an advertising agency, but the advertising agency actually didn't make it. It came from a freelancer. And so, what's the agency actually for? So the freelancer can come in and actually show them how to utilize it. But, they're just wasting the guy's time. You're wasting that effort. We could be creating that stuff in-house. You could be racing the game with everybody. You could be pumping out a lot more work. You could be having people that are really proud of what they do. And when you're proud of what you do and you've got some support of what you do, you care about what you do. And when you care about what you do, you care about the brand that you're actually working with, even if it's a bank. And you're putting that extra effort into how that's going to go. So the more that you feel, the more that you know, the less you feel like you're part of a clog in the system. Just another factory worker.
So, in the next, say, 5 years, what do you think will be the future of promos and trailers in our industry, with the huge change and huge paradigm shift happening where every broadcast company is now consolidating, and there's a lot of there's no excitement as such that they're all consolidating, because there are a lot of jobs will be gone, and broadcast television is going through a complete different change altogether. Where do you see promos and trailers be in the next 5 years?
It's still it's to communicate with people visually and audibly. Whether it's going to be on phones or whether it's, in the future, if you've got it built into your hand, it's going to be, the same effort as it is now, the same style as it's going to be now. So promos are not going away. Promos are going to be more and more important as the more consolidating actually happens. And now that Netflix and Disney Plus and all these other guys are now going to have commercial breaks, and with all the promos that are actually going to be going in there, and commercial television is still trying to up its game. I mean, everybody said radio was going to die, 15 years ago. I'm sure you've spoken to Jake already, so he told you, no, it didn't die. And he probably went through his whole thing about, visual radio, or you can see radio, which is true, right? But that's a whole different ballgame. The whole thing with us, with promos, is that no matter what platforms are going to be like. No matter how you're actually going to be viewing that content, you're going to be viewing that content, and we have to audience manage you into finding that content that you know the whole content discovery experience and that sort of thing. And so whether there are buzzwords there would actually be. But I mean, the best way to do it is to emotionally connect with you in wanting you to be a part of it. Maybe not right away, but maybe down the line you're going to binge on it. Oh, I remember that spot. I remember this. I remember that. So if we can teach people to continue making promos that emotionally connect with people, fantastic. And that we get rid of advertising agencies, because for the most crap that they actually do is crap. Maybe I haven't made it clear, but I'm not a fan of ads working in television. The advertising knows how to use television; they just don't understand, what television actually is. And so it's a weird thing going there. So I'm sure there'll be changes. I'm sure that the landscape is going to change. And I'm sure that we may be talking with just different pads and that sort of stuff. But down the line, promos are still going to be there. Humor is still going to count. Emotion's still going to count. So I don't know what to tell you.
That brings to the end of the show, Rob. It was one of the most exciting interviews I've had.
Great.
And basically, that's my favorite topic. So thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us today. And we really, really appreciate your time. And also, best of luck for whatever you're doing right now.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you again for coming.
My pleasure. And once again, the phone number is, voiceover-wise, blah, blah, blah. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Rob Middleton is still the most affluent professional in the promos and branding business even today. Will the new promo world order will replace the old one which Rob had created? Time will tell. Stew on this till we meet again in the next episode of What's Stewing.